بسم الله الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه ومن والاه ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على سيدنا محمد في الأولين وصل وسلم وبارك على سيدنا محمد في الآخرين وصل وسلم وبارك على سيدنا ومولانا محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم في الملأ الأعلى إلى يوم الدين. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to accept from us this gathering, to make this gathering a gathering of light, a gathering of beauty, a gathering of healing, a gathering of increase, a gathering of forgiveness, a gathering of mahabbah, a gathering of love. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bestow His most greatest blessings upon us. May He shower us with His grace. May He grant us His compassion and His forgiveness. May He envelop us in His rahmah. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to allow this to be a gathering that is pleasing to Him and that He boasts about in His celestial realm. Allahumma ameen ya Rabbil Alameen. Barakallahu feekum. It's as always a pleasure to be with you. Inshallah, we wanted to talk this evening about the spiritual imperative of serving others. The spiritual imperative of serving others. Why this particular title? It is because in the modern context, the idea of serving others is categorized within the space of a nice thing that you do, or it is categorized within the philanthropic sense. You're kind of going out of your way to give from something that you have to others. And there is a superficial framing in that regard. It doesn't speak to the very depths of the spiritual imperative that our religion impresses upon us. So when we look, for example, at the beginning, when the Prophet ﷺ first received divine revelation, the first moment he ever received revelation, we know that it was a very intense circumstance, so he ran to his beloved Sayyidah Khadija, his wife, who was at the bottom of the mountain. And she embraced him. He said, Inni akhafu ala nafsi. I'm worried about myself. I'm fearful. I don't know, because he really didn't fully fathom and comprehend what exactly had just happened to him in the cave of Hira. So the response of Sayyidah Khadija is very telling about how we need to think about service. So she says to him, Kalla la yukhzika Allahu abada. Don't ever worry about yourself. God will never forsake you. La yukhzik. Allah will never lead you astray. What were the reasons that she gave? فَإِنَّكَ لَتَصِلُ الرَّحْمِ. You maintain the bonds of kinship and family. وَتَحْمِلُ الْكَلْبِ. You carry burdens. وَتُعِينَ عَلَى نَوَائِبِ الدَّهْرِ. You help people shoulder the challenges of space and time. وَتَكْسِبُ الْمَعْدُومِ. And when you find people destitute, you bring them up, you pull them up. وَتُقْرِ الضَّيْفِ. You take care of your guests, that when guests come into your purview, you take care of them, you're generous and kind with them. So all of the categories that Sayyidah Khadija references to affirm assuredly that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will never forsake our Messenger sallallahu alayhi wasallam were qualities that everything had to do with the character and the conduct of the Messenger sallallahu alayhi wasallam with regards to serving others. So if you want to think about it, that is at the essence of the prophetic reality, that when divine revelation was first revealed, it came in the context and the assuredness of the character and the conduct of our Messenger sallallahu alayhi wasallam. Because we know that the Prophet ﷺ says, "Addabani Rabbi fa-ahsana ta'dibi," is my Lord who developed me, who gave me my akhlaq, my khuluq, my character, my comportment from Allah Jalla fi'ula. So we see this gives us insight into the theological consideration around service. Another hadith that is very integral in this regard is where the Messenger ﷺ was approached by a man, someone who was hoping to gain favor with Allah, someone who really wants to be a better Muslim. Imagine you're sitting there one day and you really feel like, I can be doing more, I want to be a better Muslim, I want to be a better person. So someone went to the Messenger ﷺ and said, Ya Rasulullah, man ahabbu nasi ilallah? Who is the most beloved person in the sight of Allah? Who does Allah love the most? So the Messenger ﷺ responded by saying, أَنْفَعُهُمْ لِلنَّاسِ, the one who brings the greatest benefit to people. And then he asked him, so therefore, مَا أَحَبُّ الْأَعْمَالِ إِلَى اللَّهِ, what are the most beloved of actions, conduct in the sight of Allah? He said, سُرُورٌ تُدْخِلْهُ عَلَى مُسْلِمٍ, bringing happiness to someone's heart. تُدْخِلْهُ means to bring happiness into someone's life. So, سُرُورٌ تُدْخِلْهُ, meaning what? That bringing happiness to someone's life is a proactive thing. It's an act. It's a disposition that you have. It's an identity. You're someone who exists in a way to manifest joy and happiness in people's lives. So you want to, you're proactive. So that proactiveness, you can't do something absent-mindedly. You can't just, through happenstance, bring happiness into someone's life. It has to be a reality that you're manifesting every day. Just as you strategize and plan about, dropping kids off, picking them up, getting to work, picking up groceries, going to the pharmacy. You put a strategy to ensure that you're fulfilling what you would consider to be the basic, responsibilities of the day. Well, one of these integral responsibilities, if I really am concerned about my servanthood, meaning my disposition of a abd, as a abd, a servant of Allah, and not only a servant of Allah, but a servant of Allah who is in dire want and need of Allah's love and Allah's pleasure, Allah's happiness, Allah's acceptance of me. Because when we think about ibadah, when we think about worship, where do our minds automatically go? To rote worship, right? Salah, Siyam, Quran, these are integral, essential aspects of our ubudiyyah, no doubt. There's no one would question the integral nature of these ibadat. But to neglect the multidimensionality of ibadah is a dereliction of responsibility and duty. I can't pick and choose the scope of servanthood. If Allah and His Habib sallallahu alayhi wasallam, the Messenger, are saying that the khidmah of people, the service of people, are an integral part of your ibadah, integral part of Allah's pleasure with us, then that has to be a consideration of mine. Just as I'm concerned about the 5 daily prayers, I have to be concerned about. So ask yourself, do I really bring joy to my children's hearts? Do I bring joy to my spouse's heart? Or do I only bring them grief? Think about the net experience you have with your husband or your wife. What is it? Is it joy or happiness or grief? Do I make them carry my burdens, in a way that's destructive? So every feeling, problem, issue, I just keep, shovel, pile on, shovel, pile on, shovel, pile on. The person's drowning underneath dirt. And they're like, I can't, no more, no more. And you just keep on piling on. And they never experience joy or happiness. Something that now we take, who else am I supposed to pile this stuff on? Other than this creature that's next to me that I should just burden my, carry my burdens. But there's no rahmah in that. We don't have to become each other's emotional punching bags. Whereas the only prism that I have with my spouse is problems, issues, struggles, anger, bother, distress. Let me tell you what happened at work. Naked, wrong, pain, suffering. Can you believe? I can't believe that. And you're eating and barely the food's processing down because what else? Tell me more about the toxic problems you've been experiencing. Because that's just making the food go down nicely digested. Why is that the only frame we have? Because we're so prone to negativity. We like that. We like to indulge in negative. If you think about it, the standard narrative is what? Negativity. Most of the phone calls, negative, right? And some of us are prone to negative emotions more than others, so we like to indulge in it. There's a certain joy that comes out of it. That's antithetical to the way of the Messenger ﷺ. It doesn't mean that you can't have a window or a portal to vent or share some complaints, but within measure. It has to be within measure. At the very least, you have to put it at a ratio of 80 to 20. 80 joy, 20 whatever it is, your problems are. But when it's 90-10, 90 being problems and issues and negativity, and 10 positivities, like we watch a show together and we like giggle at a clip that's on YouTube. But actually the experience with you does not bring me joy and happiness. We have to rejoice in each other's presence. That's a prophetic. The companions loved to be in each other's company. Why? Because it was a beautiful experience. Joy was induced by that. So that means that's not something you have to go. You say, yeah, but I go to the masjid and there's no one who comes and brings joy to my heart. When's the last time you brought joy to someone's heart? This is not a reality where you say, well, others should be bringing joy to my heart. Relieve yourself of that sense of entitlement. No, you be that being of joy and happiness. You be the one who spreads that reality. So, sururun ahabbul a'mal, the most beloved of actions, happiness that you bring into someone's heart. So think about your state. You may be going through a lot, and you may be having a problem at work, or you're suffering from an illness, or just a problem that you're going through. If you've internalized it so viscerally where you're kind of in a down state, then you come into a public forum, maybe the home, a gathering with the family, or the masjid. It can be a very, difficult experience for those around you. So you have to be cognizant. The Prophet ﷺ, they say, كَانَ مُتَوَاصِلُ الْأَفْرَاحِ وَمُتَوَاصِلُ الْأَحْزَانِ. From his shama'il, from his prophetic characteristics, was that he was continuously happy and continuously somber. So the scholars, Imam Tirmidhi and others, when they reconcile how was he both continuously in a state of happiness and joy, and then also in a state of somberness, thoughtful somberness, they would say that when he was with the people, mutawasilul afrah. People always experienced him in a affable, joyous, comforted state. He was going through every possible hardship, every difficulty imaginable to the human condition, but he would come to people with the fullness of a heart, trusting in Allah, relying upon Allah. So he knew that in space and time, the priority is not my feeling, but the feeling of my brother or my sister. And that's when you become genuinely selfless, because the hadith says what? That you will not be a true believer until you love for your brother what you love for yourself. So if you really love for your brother what you love for yourself, and you want to attain complete status, the complete status of a believer, then that necessitates that, I don't need to come into this place and make people carry my stuff. Rather, let me sideline my stuff and prioritize the emotions and the feelings of those in front of me. That's a prophetic being. That's a truly prophetic being. So think proactively about that. When you're coming into the masjid, you may have the greatest problems in the world, but your brothers and sisters, lahum haqq. They have a right upon you. And from the rights of one another is that we smile in each other's faces. Welcome each other with beautiful, beautiful faces, open arms. Be happy. The masjid is not a place that requires everyone to be like this. You can bring your shoulders back, take a breath of fresh air and say, Assalamu alaikum, and you hug and you shake, and how are you, and mashallah, and I haven't seen you, and I hope you're doing well. You don't understand what that does for one another. That truly does. It can revolutionize the day of a person just by that one interaction. That's why it's such an integral act of worship. That's why it's a spiritual imperative. It's not just a nice thing to do. When you hold, subhanAllah, I just came back from Morocco a few weeks ago, and my wife, my training of being in bazaars is Cairo. That's my training ground. I lived there for 8 years. So Khan Khalili, if you're familiar with it, that's my where I really trained how to haggle. So I brought all that skill set over 8 years to the marketplace in Marrakesh. And they weren't ready for the Egyptian, these people were nice, they were sweet, All my tactics were I needed a different audience for them. But I was still, bringing that Egyptian energy into the space and of haggling. And so you would see the faces of the people, in the beginning they're trying to figure me out, and then their faces just get really happy because it's fun. You experience, I don't really need to haggle over 100 dirham. It's like $9-10 or whatever, but I want to. And then I'll pay him full price, but I still got to haggle him down somewhere. So my wife was actually reflecting. She was like, subhanAllah, as I watch you each time going in, she's an academic, so she's just analyzing and observing. And she's like, everyone's face would change by the end of the gathering, right? And it hit me. I was like, subhanAllah, what did that cost me? Right? I didn't think about what I was doing, but it was, when you think about the cost of bringing happiness, you can be dreary and walk into a place, and how much is that, and what is that? Or you can make a decision to engage with the person, a cashier, a gas station attendant, a school bus driver, a garbage, a person who's like disposing of the garbage. All these people that you interact in a very passing way, you can be a truly prophetic being in their lives if you just get out of yourself. Just get out of yourself. And the Prophet ﷺ, he was emotionally, spiritually, psychologically, theologically present with people, for them. So he never missed people. Meaning, he did miss people, but he would never miss the window of opportunity. Meaning he saw everyone. So if it was a young girl from Banu Najjar, and she was happy to see him, he was more happy to see her. Atuhbibnani, do you love me? Prophet ﷺ would ask him, do you love me? They said, Naam ya Rasulullah, we love you. So then Prophet ﷺ would testify to Allah, Wallahi, I love you. To young little girls in Banu Najjar, he testified, Ushhidullah, I testify to Allah that I love you. That's the fullness of a heart that's present for people. He wasn't sitting there licking his wounds, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, hasha. So we have to be careful, especially in a day and age that is constantly impressing upon us this idea of self-absorption, narcissism. It's a pandemic, epidemic, all the demics that you want, far worse than COVID. How much we are constantly pressured in a toxic fashion at every level of the social strata, from media, politics, everything is about self-indulgence and narcissism. Everything is about you and your wants and your desire all the time, absolutely. Do you think that any of us can give anything to people when all we're doing is living within ourselves? As a mother or a father or a sister or a brother or a husband or a wife or a child, who are we able to give to when all we are is us? Fully consumed with ourselves. So this narcissism is antithetical to the way of the Prophet ﷺ. You are not meant to live for yourself. This idea of self-care is a dangerous concept. Dangerous. Dangerous from what angle? Because people say, oh, no, you have to take it. Okay. Allah, you have to be careful of the idea of self-care. You have to be invested in the idea of Allah care, meaning you care for Allah, therefore you care for yourself. You care for yourself by yourself, you don't care for yourself. You're destroying yourself. Because you will never truly care for yourself. You cannot care for yourself. La hawla wa la quwwata lak. La hawla wa la quwwata illa lillah. Or illa billah. The only one who has power, right, recourse, ability is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Who am I? So we're because in a secularized culture, we're told, me time. You don't need me time. Me time is the most destructive time. You need Allah. When have you ever spent time with yourself and it was a genuinely productive session, or a nourishing session, or an enlightening or illuminating? It's always a miserable thing when you're sitting there thinking, my wants, my desires, my feelings, the vacation, if I could just have some time off and whatever, just get a bonus, and if I just get that thing and whatever, and this feeling that I have, and if I can just have a baby, and if I just get a wife and a child, and if I just people in the community, you come out miserable. So you don't need me time, you need Allah time. You never need me time, you always need Allah time, because you're not interesting. And I'm not, nothing about me is that really. So just be with Allah, because Allah is absolutely interesting, absolutely nourishing. Allah will lift you and liberate you from that toxic sense of self. We need to be liberated from ourselves. So there's also, beyond the theological dimension of serving others, there's the practical utility of getting out of yourself. Allah's Sharia by design is maslaha, is of benefit, utility. في الدارين. See, Ibn al-Qayyim says this, Imam Ghazali, many of the ulama, they say, the Sharia, it was sent لِمَصْلَحَةِ الْعِبَادِ فِي الدَّارَيْن, for the welfare and the utility of human beings, of servants, in both worlds, this life and the next. So it's not just a theological or spiritual imperative, there's also a social, worldly utility to being in this disposition of selflessness and service to others. Right? What is one of the most obvious things that happens when you serve others? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when He speaks about the essence of the human condition, جُبِلَ الْإِنسَانُ عَلَى حُبِّ مَنْ أَحْسَنَ إِلَيْهِ, that we are naturally disposed in a way that we love those who are good to us. I tell people all the time, in our modern capitalist culture, we think that welfare is absolutely a function of what our savings accounts, our investments, our assets. Like, that's where welfare is. So when we even teach our children, we say, make sure you have a 401k, make sure you have this, make sure you have that, you have an investment plan, you have you have a retirement plan, because you never know. Yeah? You never know. You have to make sure. That's what we all say, right? It's just parroted, memorized language, all economically driven. Who's actually benefiting from that? As an individual, I promise you, your welfare is not increased. I mean, I read a study in the New York Times Magazine a few years back that said that the happiness of an individual, if a person makes $15,000 a year and they increase to 50,000, like 50, then there is in these studies, there is a marked difference in happiness. So a person becomes a little happier, But from 50 to 250, you know how much the happiness metric increases? Doesn't. Statistically, it doesn't change. Like the person's happiness from 50 to 250, from 250,000 to 2.5 million, no change. 2.5 million to 250 million, no change. So what's the point of, we blindly pursue this because we assume that there is this ephemeral maslaha in having more. Whereas historical societies have always known and have always practiced that the greatest welfare of the individual is in how much you invest in others. That's why historical societies, a part of the known adab and logic, was that your role as a murabbi, your role as a parent, was to ensure, if you think about what is your responsibility as a parent, one of the fundamental responsibilities as a parent in historical societies is that you ensure that the greatest amount of people are invested in your child. Invested in your child, meaning not they like your child or they care, they really are invested in their welfare, so they're going to be there for them. When they need anything, at any level, they have an army of people. That's why tribal societies were so natural, because there's a tremendous amount of that's why when you go, I'm going to say this. When I was in Azhar, one of my teachers, he was from Mali in Africa. So his father was visiting from Mali. This is a villager, a pure villager from Mali, never even went to Timbuktu, never went to the city center ever. Pure villager, came to visit his son who was teaching in Al-Azhar as a student. And so, he's sitting with us and he's asking everyone, in any random gathering, he'd be like, you married? How many children? First, how many children? So in those 3, 4, 5, if someone's hitting hard, it's maybe 6, 7. And he was just absolutely offended and disgusted. What is wrong with you? He's 29. Now, we sit there and we're like, what? Where are these poor women? That's our psychology, right? But for them, as societies these are centuries-long traditions, that's wealth. That's maximizing welfare, because when you have a tribe, your value is in numbers, right? With the advent of the nation-state, the nation-state has no interest in families. The nation-state has interest in atomized individuals. That's why the family is not an encouraged enterprise, right? That's why we even say things like half, 2.5, like 2.5, 2.5. All that calculus has nothing to do with the welfare of individuals. Has everything to do with the welfare of the nation, say, central government, central bank, whatever, the idea of like economy and things of that nature. But if you want to centralize the welfare of individuals, maximize the amount of people invested in one another. That's why big families are a wealth. They're a beautiful value. When you have, like, my brother-in-law, his family is, villagers from Jordan. You go there and mashallah, like the matriarch is sitting there, and she has her own, mashallah, she has over 9 children herself. And then she was the wet nurse for like half of the village. So you walk into her home at any point of time, and she just has people at her beck and call, serving her with pride and joy. This is an illiterate woman. She no reading, no writing, but her welfare, I would argue, is far greater than 99% of people in the world today. She doesn't read, doesn't write. But why is her welfare maximized? Because of the sheer volume of people invested in her. Because she lived her life investing in others. So there is a real maslahah to this idea of being at the service of others. There's a utility that extends beyond what? The akhirah. Beyond the afterlife. Beyond divine pleasure. To what? To the dunya. You can maximize. That's why a part of the concept of serving others and teaching your children to serve others is so that you maximize also your welfare. If you have a network of people that you can go to for medical concerns or occupational issues or for support and help with taking care of your home or your children or picking someone from the airport or helping with drop off and pick up from school or whatever, you are wealthy with what? With how many people? Rather than what's the standard of a capitalistic, a super consumeristic capitalist, you pay for those things. So you pay for someone who clean your house, pay for someone to pick up your kill, pay for someone to do this. You're paying. Who's benefiting? You're not benefiting. You're not benefiting. So everyone says like, yeah, I can't wait till I get to a level of like income where maybe I can pay for these services. Where these services are for free in so many traditional societies that people call backwards. They're for free there. People don't pay for these. What do you mean you pay for this stuff? We take care of it. You go to tribes in many parts of the world today, when the woman gives birth, she doesn't lift a finger. Not because, she has paid time off or her husband has paid daddy leave, whatever it's called. No. None of that. None of that stuff that, has been developed in the absence of traditional rich culture. You have the entire army of women, sisters, aunts, cousins around you to ensure that everything is taken care of. You don't even have to leave your bed. Everything is facilitated for you. And we call those societies backward. So we have to think, so the idea of serving others has layers of welfare and maslahah built into it in the social sense. Think about it from the context of your children's welfare. Who are their relationships? Who are their friends? In a day and age when the ideas, the philosophies, the ideologies, how intense it is. My niece went to just start college. She goes to college. Who's sitting next to her? Allahu A'lam. New beings that the world is producing for us. And completely shocks her system. What's going on here? So who are our children socializing with? And who are they spending time with? And what is at the, who are they going to marry? Ask yourself that question. There's a real welfare in having people investing in people so that people are investing in children. So you have, mashallah, an army of individuals who are invested in the marriage of your children, rather than you having to sit there. Our children not even having the support of parents very often, just trying to figure out going online. Many young people, they have to go online to try to find a spouse because there's no networks, no family, no one's invested in them. Why is that the case? That's on us. We have the tools and the abilities to invest in each other right now. And I think that should become like a communal imperative. How do we ensure that our collective welfare at every level is taken care of? SubhanAllah, I don't want to keep on, I have more to say on the spiritual, theological side I want to get back to, but down this line, when you look at other communities, look at the Mormons. That's a very self-subsisting community. You don't have to go outside the community for anything. For anything. They're taking care of one another. Right? You go to Orthodox Jewish communities, they take care of each other categorically. You have nothing to worry about at every level. You don't have to worry about health care, you don't have to worry about food, you don't have to worry about anything because they take care of one another. Why don't we take care of each other? Although all of our traditions, all of our heritages are big on this issue. Now we can get into a sociological, historical analysis. I think it has a lot to do with colonialism and just kind of becoming obsessed and being tantalized by the dream of, what they call the trappings of excellence. We just became tantalized by the ring, like Gollum in Lord of the Rings. Right? If you're familiar with that reference, Musa is. So we have to really think about this at the welfare level. But going back to the spiritual dimension, so the Prophet ﷺ says that the most beloved of actions in the sight of Allah are happiness that you bring to someone's heart. He also says, sallallahu alayhi wasallam, that for most of the beloved actions in the sight of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is that you take care of someone's debt. Find people in your life who have any type of debt, a small debt, a couple $100, have school debts, whatever debts they may have. They may have a debt in terms of a home, and if you have the means, relieve their debts. This is one of the most profound ways of garnering Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's love. Because Allah loves to see His servants taking care of each other. That's why the hadith says, تَقْضِي عَنْهُ دَيْنًا أَوْ تَكْشِفُ عَنْهُ كُرْبَةً, or that you rid them, you remove from upon them a hardship, whatever that may be. Someone is really, you see them distressed. They need support. They need help in any capacity. Could be financial, could be emotional, could be a place to sit, could be a drop-off at the airport, could be something that is minimal, something that's major. But if you're just with your spiritual psychology, if you're thinking, how do I relieve people's burdens? Because by the way, we're all sitting here together right now, right? If we scratch beneath the superficial veneer of our sitting together, each one of us have stuff, layers of stuff that we need help with. But the thing is, we don't have a culture in our communities right now that make it where we are connected at a level where we're open to each other. We're not. And one thing that I know, as a sheikh now, who's knows people's problems and knows people who can resolve people's problems, we have a lot of people with problems, and we have a lot of very good people who will help resolve people's problems. We have both. But we don't have the mechanism to connect those two because we keep it right here, surface. The smile, the quick salam alaikum, wa alaikum salam, the hi bye, the wave, and we're gone. But that's why the Prophet ﷺ, his disposition was that he would proactively seek people out. And if people who he knew historically had issues did not come to ask, because, for example, maybe he thought that they were shy or bashful to come and ask, he would go ask them, do you need anything? Are you good? Are you taken care of? No, tell me, I want to know. Tell me more. Are you sure? Because I'm here, you know that, right? And sometimes people, they're bashful. They don't want to say, even if you ask them. My favorite line in all of our social discourse is the following. Someone is going through a hellish condition. This is what we say to each other. Watch. Listen, if you need anything, let me know, okay? Assalamu alaikum. Who in human history has ever taken anyone up on that false, empty offer? That's called in the Egyptian culture, azumat marakbiya. Egyptians, you know this? Azumat marakbiya? You know what azumat marakbiya is? Azumat marakbiya is the following. Seamen, and when they would leave the shores, right, they would get on and they would, leaving in their boats. So they would be leaving in their boats, and then they would tell the people that are on the shore, come with us. Now they left, they're gone. They're well beyond the shore. There's no way these people can join them. So it's called uzumat marakbiya because it's like a figure of speech. It's like an empty invitation. So that's why Egyptians, even in modern culture, like tfaddalu. Like someone tfaddalu. They mean it, but they don't mean it at the same time. Like, don't really take me up on that offer. Like I'm inviting you to come, but I'm not really inviting you to come. So when we put out these niceties, when we say to each other, hey, if there's anything I can do, let me know. And we will never take each other up on that offer. That's just not something we do. If I can do something, let me know. The thing that you should do is you should be perceptive and understand the needs, make a needs analysis, a needs assessment like you do at work, all right? And you apply it to your relationships, and without any introductions, you fulfill that need. And if it's extra, it's extra. You know, could be food, could be dropping something off, whatever, taking care of that, calling, making some phone calls, whatever the support is. But we have to be proactive and assess those needs, rather than just give niceties and platitudes that fall short and empty. Because that person may receive a bunch of phone calls and text messages, and that's a nice thing that they receive some love and some attention, but they're actually still in need of real support, but they're shy to ask. And we're all like that. But the Prophet ﷺ taught the companions what? If you need anything from your brother, what do? Go put your hand in their pocket and take it. Like that's the level of the relationship that he wanted between the companions. That really, I have access to you, you have access to me. In the most visceral sense of that idea. So sharing of everything, home, food, belongings. And you saw this in the beginning of the Medinan period when the Muhajirin and the Ansar were made to be brothers, and how they would split up all of their belongings at a sense of real service, because you had this whole, the Ansar who were in Medina, who were well established, economically, socially, tribally, everything. And then you had a bunch of Muhajirin who were dispossessed of everything that made them what they were. So now they're coming to the Medina. What happens? Prophet ﷺ immediately institutionalizes a prophetic ideal that fundamentally attains the pleasure of Allah, but brings immediate social welfare and well-being, that everyone is taken care of. There's some companions who were like given something and said, no, just dulluni ala suq, show me where the marketplace is. Like, we can give this to someone else. Take me to the marketplace. I'll take care of it. I'll get myself up. But that's the spirit that pervaded. So Prophet ﷺ says, "Sururun tudkhilhu ala," the best, most beloved of action sight of Allah, happiness that you bring someone's heart, that you relieve someone of their debt. Takshifu anhu kurba, that you remove a hardship from upon them. The fourth thing he says, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, أو تطرد عنه جوعا, someone that's hungry, you rid them of that hunger. Prophet ﷺ did not specify just people who are like poor and destitute. Anyone who's hungry. Anyone who's hungry. So you identify someone who's hungry, doesn't matter who they are, and you satiate them. Invite them. You and I know how much we spend on food as is. Senseless amounts of money, buying food, restaurants, everything. And so we all know that we can suffice the needs of anywhere from one extra person to 100 extra people in our lives at different economic levels. But we can do that. A part of your theological and spiritual imperative is to identify that reality and begin to serve effectually. Sayyidina Zayn al-Abidin, one of the Ahlul Bayt of the Messenger ﷺ, one of his great-grandchildren, the grandson of Sayyidina Ali. Now, he lived in Medina, and when he was around, he was this beacon of light for the people of Medina. And he was just beloved because he had from the family of the lineage of the Prophet ﷺ, so people loved him dearly. And they all loved to have him around. When he passed away, there was a tremendous amount of loss, obviously, from every level. But there was one added loss, which was all of the people of Medina would wake up in the morning and they would have bushels of food at their doorstep. All of them. The people of Medina thought that this was something that was coming from the Baytul Mal, like the treasury. But when Sayyidina Zayn al-Abidin died, when they were washing him, doing his ghusl, he had two, lines, black lines in his back. And it turned out that every night when everyone would go to sleep, he would be walking around from his own money, and he would be placing these bushels of food at everyone's house. And after he died, no one had any idea. He had never said one day that he was doing this. They all thought it was just like the credit was all going to Baytul Mal. And he was the one doing this from himself. That is the prophetic inheritance. So especially, and we as a community of means, because in the sense, people see it and say, oh, no, I don't have that much. Well, let me tell you, when you compare yourself internationally, we are king of kings. We're not just kings, we're the king of kings from an economic perspective. So we are people of tremendous means. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says something very striking in the Quran that should really wake us up and strike some fear into our hearts. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَهَدَيْنَاهُ النَّجْدَيْنِ. We guided them to the two paths. فَلَقْتَحَمَ الْعَقَبَةِ وَمَا أَدْرَاكَ مَا الْعَقَبَةِ. They did not pass the burden, the aqaba. And then Allah asks in a rhetorical style, وَمَا أَدْرَاكَ مَا الْعَقَبَةِ. And what do you think the hurdle was? Meaning that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, I've identified the two paths for you, and you did not pass the test. You did not surpass the aqaba, the hurdle, the burden, the responsibility. What is it? فَكُّ رَقَبَةٍ. Freeing people from bondage. What's the next ayah? فَكُّ رَقَبَةٍ أَوْ إِطْعَامٌ فِي يَوْمٍ ذِي مَسْغَبَةٍ. Or feeding people when the situation is dire, ذِي مَسْغَبَةٍ, when there's hardship, feeding people. يَتِيمًا ذَا مَقْرَبَةٍ. Prioritizing who? Orphans, especially those who are your relatives. A lot of us have relatives back home who are struggling. I know of so many relatives back home who struggle a lot, who die because of their struggles, because of poor health care, poor food security, and they really struggle. And we're sitting here with tremendous means. So yatiman dha maqraba. The Prophet said, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is very explicit. The orphans, especially those who are your relatives. And then, أو مسكينا ذا متربة. Or a miskin, someone who's in need, impoverished. ذا متربة. Matraba comes from turab, someone who's kind of wallowing around in the dirt. So meaning this is a metaphor for someone who is genuinely in need. So these four categories become the aqaba of this dunya. Inna hadaynahu sabil. Right? Wa hadaynahu sabil. We have guided them to the two paths. فَلَقْتَحَمَ الْعَقَبَةِ وَمَا أَدْرَاكَ مَا الْعَقَبَةِ. These are the aqabas of this dunya. So this is, this matter, it then there's serious costs attached to it. So we can see the spiritual, emotional reality that's attached, the utility, the welfare, how much we will become emotionally satiated and fulfilled by serving others. But then there is existential concerns here. Like my existential relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is in question. To what extent this, especially us people of means. So the hadith said what? The most beloved of people in the sight of Allah, those who bring the greatest benefit to people. The most beloved actions in the sight of Allah, we mentioned the four. Happiness, what else? Removing debts, removing hardships, and feeding. Then the Prophet ﷺ said, he said in the same hadith, this hadith is found in Tabarani, narrated by Ibn Umar. He says, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, لَأَنْ أَمْشِيَ مَعْ أَخٍ لِي فِي حَاجَةٍ حَتَّى أُقْضِيَهُ لَهُ. That for me to walk with someone, meaning to be alongside someone, to fulfilling their needs, whatever their haja is, until it is fulfilled, he said, it is more beloved to me than i'tikaf fi masjidi hadha shahra. And he was sitting in his masjid, the Masjid Nabawi. He said that to fulfill someone's needs and to be alongside them until they fulfill their needs is more beloved to me than to do i'tikaf in this masjid for 1 month. And Sayyidina Abdullah ibn Umar, many years later, he was doing i'tikaf in Dimashq. And so Sayyidina Abdullah ibn Umar was doing i'tikaf, and he saw a man next to him, and the man looked a little burdened. You can see when someone's really going through something. So of course, as a prophetic being, what did he do? He didn't just sit there and say, oh, I just, No, he left he got up and he went to the brother. He said, is everything okay? I see you worried or concerned. So the man says, Daynun lazimani. I have this debt that's just, it's attached to me. So then Abdullah ibn Umar said to him, do you want me to go talk to the person who, this debt is owed to? So he said, you do as you see you do as you see fit. So Sayyidina Abdullah ibn Umar broke his i'tikaf. And so the other people said to him, you're going to leave your i'tikaf for this? Now, this is not a fiqh dispensation, okay? Fiqh is discussed in other conversations. This is a story. The rules of i'tikaf, the legal considerations, the fiqh of i'tikaf is a different conversation, okay? So just let's make that clear. So he left the i'tikaf. This was his own independent fatwa. He left the i'tikaf. So they asked him, they said, you leave the i'tikaf and this is i'tikaf. So then what did he reference? He referenced this hadith. Prophet ﷺ said, to go with a brother to fulfill their needs is more beloved than to make i'tikaf in the Prophet ﷺ's masjid for a month. And then the end of the hadith is that the Prophet ﷺ says that if you are with the person until it is fulfilled, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala yuthabbit qadamayk yawma tazulu al-aqdam, that your feet will be affirmed on the day of judgment, the day when the feet are slipping and the people are losing and the people are falling, then you will be upright and affirmed. So this is, if this does not compel us to reconsider the spiritual imperative, the theological imperative, the social imperative of serving others, I'm not sure what will. This is a part of your identity as a servant of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I pray that we're really able to consider the dimensionality, the criticalness of this in our lives. The Prophet ﷺ says, كان الله والله في عون العبد ما كان العبد في عون أخيه. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will be in the support, in the aid of a servant if the servant is in the aid of his brother. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the Prophet ﷺ teaches us that those who take care of people's needs, al-hawa'ij, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala takes care of your needs. So don't ever worry, say, well, if I do this, then I'm going to somehow lose. I can't help you because I have to do this. There may be circumstances where that's genuinely the case, and you genuinely cannot, because this dollar will mean your children will suffer, and so there may be a genuine opportunity where the reality that exists where you cannot. However, you should always make it that default should be that you prefer people over yourself as a default, right? Not that it leads you to halak. I'm not saying that you should lead you to self-destruction. But if you understand that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will take care of your needs if you take care of the needs of others, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will be at your aid if you're in the aid of others, then you never have anything to worry about. You never, ever have anything to worry about. Bifadlillahi ta'ala. There's nothing. You should really think to yourself, I should never worry. If I have Allah and I'm serving people, I'm taking care, even if it seems counterintuitive, even if you're not seeing that you're reaping the benefits. We're not absolute utilitarians, or it's like, it has to be, I have to see the cost-benefit analysis. No, give. Prophet ﷺ told Sayyidina Bilal, who is the servant who was enslaved, who was freed, who was a man of very little means. And the Prophet ﷺ said to him, أنفق بلال ولا تخشى من ذي العرش إقلالا. Give, spend, O Bilal, and do not fear a lessening from the Lord of the throne. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you never have to worry. Allah will always take care of you. Anfiq. That's why the famous incident where the Prophet ﷺ, after one of the ghazawat, after the war, a part of the war booty was that he had this valley full of camels. So the Prophet ﷺ was standing in front of this, between two valleys full of camels. That's like a valley full of Mercedes or like, whatever, like really high-end luxury automobiles. Like that's a lot of wealth. So one of the simple Bedouins, right, a man of simple means, unidentifiable, right, comes and says, "O Messenger of Allah, does this belong to you?" He said, "Yeah." So the Prophet ﷺ said, "Do you like it?" He said, "I definitely like that." So the Prophet ﷺ, "Khudha, take it." So he said, so the man said, the Bedouin said to Rasulullah, "Atahza'u bi? Are you mocking me?" He said, "No, take it." So the man went and started to hiss away all the camels. And the Prophet ﷺ was just watching, smiling, Take it. Like, don't worry. I mean, so it's, imagine you go, you have your car in the parking lot. You say, "Take it." Come on, take it. And you say, "Oh, yeah." You're happy and you're full of joy. Take it. Imagine giving your house away. Take it. Imagine that. That house that your dream. Imagine you just say, "Take it. If you like it, take it." So I'll go. I can figure out something over there. If you're a person of means like that. Prophet ﷺ, he never held on to anything. Everything was given away. That's why the man went back to his people, and his people became Muslim because of this incident. He said, "Aslimu." He said, surrender to the way of the Prophet, this messenger, Muhammad. فَإِنِّي, he said, the man said, رَأَيْتُ رَجُلًا يُعْطِي عَطَاءَ مَنْ لَا يَخْشَى الْفَقْرِ. I gave, or al-faqa. He said, I met someone who gives a type of giving of someone who does not fear any type of loss or poverty. Imagine to experience that type of giving in your life. That's a shift-changing kind of experience. To experience that type of giving, what does that do to people? What does that do to the spirit of the human being, the emotions? What can that do to a community when that's the nature of giving? أنفق بلال ولا تخشى من ذي العرش إقلالا يعطي عطاء من لا يخشى الفقر. That's like a powerful spiritual reality. It's just no fear of loss, because anyone who gives that way knows with certainty that Allah is the giver. There's no questions asked. That's a person who has no doubts in the capacity of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So that should be the spirit of our giving. And lastly, when do I have to close? 5 minutes? Tell me, Q&A, no Q&A, what's the system today? We're doing Q&A? 7:10 is Maghrib. Okay, so questions? Are there questions? Okay, we'll stop for questions now. But I was about to say something. Allahumma salli ala Sayyidina Muhammad. We get, alhamdulillah, we get bothered when people identify us as the people to be asked. For example, it happens all the time with kids. How come you always ask me to take out the garbage? How come you always ask me to clean up? How come you always ask me to help you in the kitchen? How come you always ask me, why don't you ask this? As if social justice warriors in the space of the home. Trying to bring justice to the... No, you should feel absolutely honored and blessed that you are the one that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is identifying as an object of giving. So you become the one who gives all the time. You should say, "I'm going to be the one who takes out the garbage every time. Even if you fight me over it, you're not taking it out. I'm going to clean the dishes every time. Even if you try to wash the dishes in the dark of the night, I'll wake up like an assassin. I'll have a camera so you can't touch a dish." We sit there and we're like, "Oh, no, how come you and I don't?" And we get in this super selfish, narcissistic, you shouldn't, I shouldn't. Just do. Give. What are you losing? You're not losing, we think we're losing our dignity, we're losing so much. No, give. Give unconditionally. When Sayyidah Aisha, they had a goat, and the Prophet ﷺ, he said, "Give the goat." So she gave. And then she kept the katif, the shoulder. Because why did she keep the shoulder? Because she knew the Prophet ﷺ. From her heart, she wanted, my husband gives, I want him to have what he likes. So he came home, he said, what did you give? She said, "I gave the whole goat. And what remains is the shoulder for you. Because I want," he said, "No." He said, "Everything that you have given, that's what remains for us. And this shoulder, we want it to remain as well, so give it." in Arabic it sounds much more sophisticated. The idea is that like, when you give something away, يَبْقَى لَكَ, that's what actually remains for you. That's what will actually be there for you in the long run. But whatever you consume right now, it just gets burnt up. Right? It's not going to remain for you. That's what he's saying. So he's basically saying the cost-benefit analysis is that if I were to eat this shoulder, it will just be a momentary pleasure and go away. But if I give it, then it will remain for me. So give in that spirit. Serve your home in that spirit. Serve your children in that spirit. Children, when you get older, and now you have parents, and your parents, no, you always have parents, but as your parents get older, that's what I meant. Your parents get older, they're going to need you. And this really ugly thing has started to happen where it's like, how come I'm the one who has to take over my parents? Why do I have to take on mom? Why do I have to take it dad? You're right there. Why do I have to come every time from across the country just to be because you're a deadbeat? And you're angry and you're bothered and you're traffic. There should be a Hunger Games-like competition between people to figure out who's going to take care of their parents. The greatest honor of a servant's life should be to take care of your parents. You should literally go and kidnap your parents from your siblings' home to make sure that they don't get that honor, that you get that honor. And you should fight. I'm being facetious here, no real fighting, right? But you get what I'm saying here. That should be like, you should battle over it and really clamor. Your parents, that's why Prophet ﷺ says, what's the hadith? Someone help me here. رَغِمَ أَنْفُ امْرِئٍ أَدْرَكَ أَبَوَاهُ عَلَى كِبَرْ وَلَمْ يَدْخُلِ الْجَنَّةِ. The true loser, رَغِمَ أَنْف means that when the face is being smushed into the dirt. So that's a metaphor for loss. So the Prophet ﷺ saying the true loser, رَغِمَ أَنْفُ امْرِئٍ أَدْرَكَ أَبَوَاهُ, who has the blessing of meeting their parents when their parents reach an elder age, and this person does not go to Jannah. Meaning that the most easy, direct path to Jannah is serving your parents at their older age. But we get into this entitled, bothered, how come, justice, right, wrong, equality. Who cares about any of that stuff in this space? You be the primary giver of everything in everyone's life. Alhamdulillah. And meet Allah in that state. Then you are with the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So get over it. Don't get tantalized by this idea of like fairness and me and my dignity. And you should. Why should I always be the one doing? You should do too. And we get bought. No, give. I pray that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala helps us to have insight and to have hikmah, to have wisdom and to have foresight and to have understanding of how we can truly follow in the footsteps of our Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala beautify us with the beauty of the Quran, the beauty of the Sunnah. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allow us to follow in the footsteps of our Habib sallallahu alaihi wasallam. May we be truly prophetic beings who give and who give unconditionally and who give everything that we have. May we not feel the regret of those when they die. They say, رَبِّ ارْجِعُونَ لَعَلِّي أَعْمَلُ صَالِحًا فِي مَا تَرَكْتُ. May we not feel the regret of those who say after they die, Ya Allah, let me go back and do good with what I have left behind. Make it that we are قُلُوبْ رَاضِيَةً مَرْضِيَةً, that we are content and happy with Allah and Allah is content and happy with us. May Allah bless this community and its families, its children, its parents, its loved ones. And may this community and its masjid be a beacon of prophecy and Quranic spirit that shines well beyond all of our existence. Allahumma ameen. Rabbil alameen. Wa sallallahu wa sallam wa barak ala Sayyidina Muhammad. Wa akhiru da'wana and alhamdulillahi Rabbil alameen. I'm sorry, it's 7:11. I wasn't going to stop for Q&A. Any critical questions? Maybe you can ask me after Salah, inshallah. Barakallahu feekum.
Assalamu alaikum. Jazakallah khair, Shaykh. Just a quick reminder, we do have food to purchase after Maghrib Salah in the multi-purpose room. So please do join us after Maghrib. Jazakallah.